Life has a really interesting way of you don't know where you're going as you go through it. But when you look back on it, there's so many little decisions you make that get to where you are. You always wonder, man, what if I made a decision to do this or do a decision to do that? But to be honest with you, it really goes back. I mean, I have to pay a lot of tribute to my high school band director, and he was a major influence in my life. And my parents were out of this world, but when I was a third year junior at Western Michigan, I was a trumpet section leader in the marching band. I love marching band. I didn't have to do it as a music major. You didn't have to do it for 4 years. You only did it for 2. And I thought, this is what I'm gonna do for a life. I really want to get as much out of this as I can. So I chose to do it for 4 years and knew that I was going to all along. And I was trumpet section leader and loved it. It was great. And, had a really good time. But we went through some band director transitions. My first 2 years was a guy that had been there for a while, and everybody liked him. And then my third year there was a guy that came in just as interim, and he didn't do the best job. But not because of him. He was a very good musician and did a really good job with what he did. It was unfortunate that the students in the band didn't follow. And Mr. Peace came in the next year, and I had decided to apply for a drum major, and I got it. And I did that at the 11th hour. I didn't, I was envisioned myself as playing trumpet, and I thought, you know what, let me just give this drum major thing a try. I think I could really help this situation with the band director change, because I try to have a philosophy of whatever leadership's in place, just follow, because it can't hurt. No one is ill-intentioned and wants to do ill will, but I followed, and Bill came in, and he did a lot of really, really great things. But of course, just because he was new, it wasn't the tradition. Some of my classmates didn't follow, but I followed blindly and just said, let's do this, let's get this done. I want to have an institution filled with pride and make this really something special. And he and I really bonded that year, because being a first year teacher, for anybody that's in Curry or going into another school, you're so dependent upon the students around you following and getting onto one common goal. And I think I tried to help him in that year, but we played a lot of golf that year together, and had a good time, which was nice for me. I mean, I was a student. I was excited about, a professor wants to play golf with me. This is pretty cool. But so it's not unlike probably the experiences that a lot of other students here at UVA with him. He's just a tremendous man that gives a lot and demands a lot at the same time. So we hit it off, and I went on to South Carolina. He had a grad assistantship lined up before he came to Western Michigan, and he had twins instead, so he had to get a job. And he had that contact with South Carolina and said, you should go down there. And it was when I was graduating, so I student taught and then went down to South Carolina to get a graduate assistantship, and never stayed out of touch with Bill. Taught high school down there for 4 years, never stayed out of touch with Bill. And I probably talked to him 4 or 5 times a year, I would say, on the phone. And a couple times he actually came down to South Carolina to do some honor band things, so I got to hang out with him then. And he had a major impact, though, on just me reconceiving the way band's taught is, it's about the people first, and the music will come if the people are all in. And I love that philosophy, because I'm a very rah-rah school spirit. I always have been. When I taught high school, I taught it was a town band, and we played in summer concerts, and the big parades that were in town. Everybody loved the band, and they came out for the football games and tailgated and supported the band. And the band was something that was really a source of pride for the community. And so I love that. That was how it was when I was in high school. I've always had that, and I feel like even though this is a big community, UVA has been built that same way, that it's a community that sort of rallies around the band. It's a source of pride for the community, and that was something that was appealing to me. So Bill said, I'm hiring an assistant, I'd love for you to apply. I thought, wow, I'm really having a good time teaching high school. It was a tough decision. Actually, things were going really well there, and I felt like I was just getting my, 4 years teaching high school. I wish I'd taught 10 or 20. But I thought, well, let me give this a shot, and the rest just kind of turned into history. And the reason, to be honest with you, that I've been so content here is because I never feel like, first of all, Bill and I get along really well, and we kind of read each other's thoughts, and we have a very similar philosophy on people first, and really it's about the band and serving before it's about yourself. Serve the needs of others before you serve yourself, and you'll really create a legacy. And I think the students here that's part of the culture at UVA, so it wasn't a hard sell within the band. But one of the biggest reasons, to be honest with you, I haven't left is because I always also have this little ingrained thought that we're never done. We haven't arrived yet. We still have a lot of places to go. And I'm excited for the future all the time and what comes ahead. And I'm proud. I don't take enough time probably to smell the roses on what we've accomplished in 10 years, 11 for you guys, 10 for me. But to know that we're always going to strive to move forward and never be satisfied with where we're at, I think is something that the UVA students do in their academics, and then that translates over to the band. So this is a great ride. I've been happy to be a part of it, for sure. I trust people quickly, and I to a fault almost sometimes will do that, and I trusted him with the band that, I had been there for 3 years and he had been there for 3 days. And I said, what you're doing is the way to go. Let's do this. And, I really try not to think, if that makes sense, to think in the moment. I try to reflect and think, bigger picture. And I think if people keep a big picture goal in mind all the time, all the little minutia of the day to day, it starts to fade out for this greater goal of what you're trying to achieve. And that's a philosophy that we share. So I would say philosophically we're on the same page is the best thing. I like to think that I would probably get here. Well, I've never slept so often, but if he said, I really need you to do this for Kemper or somebody, they really need something, can you come down there? And it was 3 a.m. and I just woke up, I would come down in my PJs and get it done, and I wouldn't even think twice about it. And I think that's probably a trait that he finds useful. But I don't do it for kudos. I do it because I enjoy it, and I like to see the students succeed. There was a really great story, I tell it all the time, about one of our former students, Aurelia, writing that when I was first year everything was magic, but now that I'm a leader, I have to be the one, just like a parent at Christmas, that creates that magical environment for the first years or the people that are not in leadership. And that analogy, I think, is probably something that I kind of like to live my life by, because for me, my Christmas present is seeing the smiles and the parent hugs and the slaps on the back and the jubilation on people's face after they perform a great show, or we get a big win, or something great happens in the stands. And I think that's really special. And for me, that's rewarding. So that's how I get my reward. I can remember not having a place to practice, countless numbers of days where we had to, with just me and one other person, or me and 5 other people, or whatever, a crew of a very small crew, load up the instruments when we don't make a call whether we're going to be outside or inside until 5:15 for a 6 o'clock practice. And have to load up in a consecutive order because they were in 2 little trailers every piece of equipment that we own: stands, instruments, music bins. There was so much stuff that we had to do, the drum line, all that onto a truck that we didn't have. In a lot of cases, we had to rent. So, the logistics of making that happen, at the time, I really, to be honest with you, didn't think about it. I just waited for that decision to be made. And, we talked it out, and I kind of could prepare, looking ahead at the weather. But that's a big challenge that we had. Also, just bigger than the logistical challenge was just getting people in the statewide to look at UVA as a place where you could come and continue playing your instrument, because it had been so long where there wasn't an organized way to do that, and people didn't really consider in the state UVA as a place where I can come and get quality instruction, have a great time playing, where there's a big time band. And now it's not only statewide, but it's nationwide, where people look at the band, they see our videos online, and talk to us, and they know that this is a place where they can get quality instruction and have an environment where it's a place where they're going to get better as a player and have a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I think if you ask about a challenge, actually, that's probably the biggest challenge that I saw was just the recruiting aspect of things. And then the band as a medium always struggles with getting the right instrumentation in place before anything else, and making sure that you have a good balanced instrumentation. And here, obviously, there's a lot of very smart, and just in bands in general, there's a lot of very smart woodwind players, which is tremendous. And I would argue with anybody from another school that doesn't march woodwinds that it doesn't sound like a band without woodwinds. But they're not the primary melody and bass instrument. And because a high school band might have 14 flute players but 5 trombones, the numbers are stacked against you. So just getting the right instrumentation in place has been a challenge, but I think that's something that we're starting to cross a really good threshold on. As the numbers get bigger, it perpetuates itself a little bit more, but there's no shortage of work done in that area. I can promise you that. It's still always sort of at the front of our mind, because we're only as good as the instrumentation will allow. I am a people person that happens to have music in my blood a little bit. I'm not really a musician first, if that makes sense. I love watching and helping people achieve what they can do at the highest level they could possibly do it. And it happens to be that music is the medium for doing that here. And I try to keep that in mind, and it's tough. That's one of the toughest things you have to do as a teacher or parent, is trying to sit down with somebody and say, you're not doing a good job. This is not your potential. You're not meeting your potential. And you have to figure out, different people take that message different ways. And if you don't have the moments where you're really getting to know somebody, talking to them on the phone over the summer, or meeting them live at orientation, or having those moments where you're, like at band camp where we're having Section Olympics or ice cream socials, things like that. If you don't have those moments, you can't really learn what people are all about. And you don't know how to deliver that message the best way possible. And obviously with 320 people, it's hard to get to know everybody. But I try to do my best to get that to happen, because it does help me realize where people are at, where I think they can be, and with the right motivation. And there's always going to be moments where, especially in a group, where people contribute at different levels, whether it be socially or physically, time, whatever. But when you're in the moment, you have to all be on a common goal. Not everybody's going to put in the same time as a drum major. Not everybody's going to put in the same time as a attendance crew person. Not everybody's going to put in the same time as a band day person. But we all have to come together when it's time and put our best foot forward, so to speak, on the field, and learn the music and do all those things. So I think you have to really be focused on the time that we're in rehearsal. Block everything else out of your mind. And then when rehearsal's done, let's go out and get Raising Cane's. Who cares? Whatever. And then we can reflect on things. But it really goes back to what I said about Mr. Peace and some of the traits that I feel like you know, helped me help him is I really try to blindly follow the cause, but I expect other people to do that too. And then let's reflect after we get done, after we're in that moment and we're finished. Let's reflect and figure out, did that help, did it not? Because I make mistakes all the time. And sometimes the greater goal of what we're doing might be something that's not going to succeed, and we change and we do something different. And then you got to go back and say, you know what, yeah, I think we should look about this a different way, and that's okay. But in the moment especially, I try to be completely focused on the rehearsal and getting everything going in the same direction, so we're not all doing 20 different things. If I've I don't know, I've thrown up off the tower and kept going. I've had twice. I'm a dog lover, and I've had dogs put to sleep happen this year, and then had to go to a basketball game, which is really hard for me. And I go home and it's tough, but there's bad things that happen in everybody's lives, and that's not even the worst thing that's happened to a student of ours. We've had way worse than that. And when you're at practice, though, that should be a chance to kind of get those things off your mind and really focus in on what you're doing. Because if you're going to be there, there's nothing you can do about what's outside. When I'm at practice, I'm not thinking about my wife and son. Obviously I care greatly for them, but when I'm with my wife and son, I'm probably not thinking about practice either. And if people do that, I think they'll be successful in their lives and their professional life and personal life too. So, but it's hard to do sometimes. I can't lie. There's been times where it's been tough, but you just got to keep thinking in your head, this is for the common goal. We're getting this done. Let's go. Let's keep moving forward. And I think I just want people to try to do that as best as they can, and I think the band will reap its benefits if they do.